BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we're going to be answering about that team in our August 20th preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom, and tonight, Dan, we're talking about the Santo Wildcats.
Yeah, and this is a Santo program that underwent a little bit of a rebuild last year with a lot of young players getting a lot of playing time for them. But it looks like if things break right, they could bounce right back and start a new playoff streak this year. They've got 16 of 26 Lettermen returning, including 6 offensive and 8 defensive starters, and should have some kids coming up from a pretty good JV team. So I would expect Santo to take a little bit of a step forward, but they will have some big questions to answer if they want to do that, and we'll address those here in just a little bit.
All right, before we talk about Santa, we want to remind you folks to please hit the subscribe button. After that, please hit that small little bell, and you'll get notifications every time that we come up with a new video here at Big Country Preps on YouTube. And with that, Dan, the top questions. What's the first question that you have about Santo coming into this year?
I think the first one is just how much will the returners that they have benefit from that year of experience last year. There were definitely some growing pains for a lot of young players in some unfamiliar spots. They had such a good group come through that did a lot of really good things for them, and as happens sometimes at the Class 2A level, when you run out of bodies, you kind of go undergo a little bit of rebuild, and that's kind of what happened with Santo last year. But they return a lot of kids who did a lot of who played a lot of big roles for them last year. I'm just eager to see how much they'll benefit from that experience. I've talked about this in the past, but in my opinion, there is no greater kind of predictor of success in high school football than experience. And when you have kids who have done it before, it's just a huge advantage. So I'm eager to see how big of a step forward they can take with the experience gained last year.
Well, they got 16 returning Letterman, which is not too bad, not too shabby, and they've got help coming up also from an 8-2 JV team to join those 16 returning Letterman, and that's really one of the big questions I've got. I want to know how much help they're going to get from that 8-2 JV squad. You know, filling the holes every year. Going to have a few holes to fill, and they're going to have some talented youngsters coming up to fill the gaps. So it looks interesting on paper. It looks like Santos got a real shot of big improvement.
For sure, definitely. And then my last question is at the quarterback position. Obviously, those who have followed Santos' program know that that is a very devoted program to that flexbone offense that they run. This is they love that option. They love that physical run game. And this year they've got a kid they're really excited about at the quarterback position in Rylan Griffith, a sophomore. And as we've seen in the past, when Santo has a kid that really has a good feel for that option, generally speaking, their offense is difficult to stop. So I'm interested to see what that transition is going to be for him. He is still a young player. Obviously, needs to get some experience under his belt at the varsity level, but it sounds like he's a guy that could be the next in line of those just really good triple option quarterbacks that Santos had. So I'm eager to see what Griffith looks like this year in that role.
All right, we're going to be taking a quick look at Santos' schedule for this year, but before we do that, we need to thank a few of our sponsors. Beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Bracken, KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a new vehicle or a used vehicle, call Rob. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Give him a shout at 254-559-2266. That's Rob Durham up at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And finally, Cavalry Resources and Construction, located up in Breckenridge, serving the entire big country, offering custom standing seam roofing made on location and all commercial roofing applications. Give Kobe Walker a shout at 254-246-5546. That is Cavalry Resources and Construction in Breckenridge. All right, and with that, we're going to take a look at the Santos schedule for 2025. We'll begin with the non-district portion. That'll all start on August 29th with a home date against Electra. A week later, they'll be at Valley View on the 5th. On the 12th, they'll play host to Bruceville Eddy. And then on the 19th, they'll play at Rio Vista. And then they'll close out that non-district portion with a game against Millsap. And there's a couple of 3As in there, Dan, that are, pretty respectable. Millsap Valley View. It's going to be an interesting non-district portion to see what this young team can do. And actually, it'll probably benefit them going into district play, to get a few challenges.
Yeah, and we've talked in the past. A lot of times, your non-district schedule is based on what you've done in the past, as opposed to where you are currently. And I think that's kind of the case with theirs. Is they built that off some really strong seasons, but it'll be interesting. And obviously, they have their open date October 3rd before opening district at Era on the 10th. They follow that with a home game against Chico on October 17th. Then hit the road for Munster on October 24th. They play on October 30th against Lindsay at home before wrapping up their district schedule November 7th at Collinsville. So. That's a tough district. It has been for a while, so it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that.
Game of the year for this young Santo team. How do you see it? What's the most important date for them this year?
I think if you're talking about the playoffs, it's one of, I mean, it's probably that first, those first two games right off the bat. You've got Era and Chico right off the bat. You want to be 2-0 at the end of those games, and if you are, you're probably going to make the playoffs. And then you're talking about seeding. But if you drop either one of those, you're going to kind of be in the situation they were last year, where you're at the mercy of whatever happens the rest of the way.
Well, there's some toughies there down the stretch with Collinsville and Munster. You don't want to go into that Munster game 0-2.
No.
You don't. So yeah, I agree with you. Those first two games are going to be big time important for the Wildcats, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that Lindsay game's not easy either. That's a program that's been steadily
No,
getting improved as well. So you
no.
you definitely want to take advantage of those first two games and try to get off to a good start in district play.
All right, and with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Santo Wildcats. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on August 20th, that's when we'll be releasing our preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. It's the most comprehensive look at Big Country and the surrounding area, high school football of any media source around this area in the Big Country or across the state for that matter. Don't forget, August 20th, that's the big day.
In the meantime, we appreciate you tuning in for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series, and we hope you will join us again tomorrow when we talk about the Goldthwaite Eagles here at BigCountryPreps.com.